Hello and welcome to the Startup Mavericks podcast from Berlin Startup School. In this podcast, we interview founders and startup coaches about different topics. And in today's episode, we will discuss with you, Yascha Roshani, one of our startup coaches, the topic prototyping, which is, in my opinion, one of the most important topics in the life cycle of a startup. And and I'm really curious of the things that you're going to tell us, because you're in a really special position. First of all, welcome, Yascha.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Could you quickly introduce yourself and tell us what you're actually doing?
Sure. I was born and raised in Berlin. I lived and studied in Leipzig, Cologne, Madrid, London, and Ottawa in Canada. I studied sports management in my bachelor's and then general management in my master. After that, actually, I had a corporate experience for 3 years. After finishing my study, I worked in a big organization as the assistant of the CMO that was in the field of outdoor advertising and city furniture. And after that, I started my founder journey, which I do until today, which is I always had a passion for drinks. So today, together with my team, we are running an online marketplace for non-mainstream drinks.
We will get back to this alcoholic, non-alcoholic situation later on, especially about those drinks. And I'm, of course, curious how you came to teach others then about the topic of prototyping. Would you say this is something that you made extremely well yourself, or that you're passionate about? So how come?
None of those reasons, actually. The reason is that, as I said, I studied business, so I have a business background. I would say I was always kind of good at it, but I never learned how to start something from scratch. I don't know how the situation is today in the university landscape, but back then at my universities, and there were almost a handful of them, I never learned how to start something from the beginning, from the outset. So usually what you learn in the business administration curriculum is about how ongoing organizations, you have human resources, you have production, you have procurement, and so. But what do you do if you have an idea and you start from zero? I didn't know that, to be honest. I was lucky. I was fortunate enough to have people around me and maybe to join the right programs. Also be in the right city for that, to learn from others of how you start things. And one of the most important things, in my opinion, is to test your idea before you start. Because as an entrepreneur, you are working with resources, and one or two of the most important resources you have is time and money. So before you start something and you invest a lot of money, a lot of time, and eventually maybe a lot of frustration, you need to test it. And it's a mindset thing. It's a question of mindset. It's something you first have to understand why you need to test in order to test. I didn't have that back then, so just like many other founders, I believe you have an idea, and in your head it makes perfect sense. That's how our brains work. Everything is just perfect, and everybody will want your product.
Of course.
But that's not the case, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be the case. So in order to save yourself that frustration, waste of money, waste of time, you test it first. And again, I think it's a question of mentality. It's a question of mindset. And it's not only that when you start your journey, you need to the original business idea that you have is the one that you need to test. It's also for later on, because the journey never stops, right? There's no product is done after the first month. You always advance. You develop the product and so on. And the question is, what do you spend your resources on? What feature do you develop? What project do you take on next? So I think this is the main reason why I wanted to start sharing my knowledge, my experience, so that others don't. I don't want to call it a trap, but just some advice. Go for the test first. Validate your business idea. See your business idea as a hypothesis. At any point, it's a hypothesis. Even leave the word business out of it, because there's no business. There's something again in your head, in your imagination that makes sense, and take it from there. there. And this is what I want to share, because it took me many years of studies where I didn't learn this. And then I was, again, as I said, fortunate enough to have people here that told me, go for the test. See if people want what you want to, what you're going to do.
But are you then also telling me or our listeners that you did it right from the very beginning? So how did you start?
Not at all. I spent the first, I would say, half a year or more on things that were very much unrelated to the product. So I mapped out the business.
The idea that you were already or still working on, was this the same idea you started back then, or was it slightly different?
No, it's the same one, yeah. Mm-hmm. It was always a marketplace for drinks. Mm-hmm. But I spent a lot of time at working on the business plan, which I think is not a bad thing, because you, at least you get into the topic of your business idea. You know, the business plans are great. You do a lot of research and you become very educated about the company and the market you're going to be in. But I think I did too much on that. I did a lot of going to events, a lot of networking, a lot of looking for... The other thing is, so first you have to understand that the business idea you have is maybe not something that will fly. Mm-hmm. The second is that obviously organizations are multidisciplinary, so you probably have weak spots in your skill set, even if you're a team. So what I did also, because it's a technical company that we have, is look for technical people, like for a co-founder that will fill the position of the CTO.
Right from the start? You looked out for one?
Yeah, because I'm not a programmer. I have a business background. Okay. So I was looking for someone to do that. Mm-hmm. But it's hard, right? It's very hard to, if you don't have the money. So you either look for a co-founder who will get shares and work with you on the vision of the product, of the company, or you look for the money, may it be a loan or funding or so, in order to pay people who will work on your idea, build the product, and so on. So I did that, but I think, again, what I learned soon after starting initially is the first thing: kill your darling or kill your imagination. Go for the very core of your idea. Test it first, and the second, do it yourself. So don't think, because that's what you think. It's what I would also think if I started again, probably. You need a bunch of people and a lot of experts in order to get to the first version of your product. But that's not the case. I think nowadays we have so many resources in the internet. We have access to worldwide freelancers, and there's so many great platforms to use them. And you should be capable, not for every product. Usually, there's always exceptions, of course. But I think in most cases, especially for digital products, you can build it yourself. You can be at your computer, use the World Wide Web, use the tools, use the freelance network that you have in order to get to something. Because time to product and later on time to market is crucial to your success.
So you would say, looking out for a CTO nowadays is not necessarily the thing you should start with?
I think you have to do it in parallel. So a founder journey or any kind of organization is complex. So you have many tasks, many assignments. By the way, that's something I remember from back then. So today maybe the set of challenges is different. But back in the day, I remember there's so much you have to think about, and there's so many decisions you're taking on every single day. So it's one of the things that you have to do always on an ongoing basis to look for. I mean, if your business idea requires more co-founders, if you can do it on your own, then sure. But if you have a business background and it's a technical product, then you need someone, in my opinion. Or if you are a technical person and the product requires product management, sales, marketing, business development, and so on, then you need someone. So I would say you have to do it in parallel. You have to work on the product. while you're on your own, and while you work on the product, look for people. And I think they go hand in hand, because in order to convince others, you have to show something to them. So it's not always that you just elaborate on your idea. It's not always a sales pitch. You have to show something. And even if the smallest version of what can you bring yourself to is a mock-up, a wireframe, it's a demo video, that's even better than nothing. But you have to work on the product. You have to work on how the product works, how it looks like. At best, of course, have a prototype. But no, I don't think that you don't need a CTO. It always depends on the idea, on the company, on what you want to do.
Complexity too, right?
Exactly. Maybe you even need more than 2 people. We know many companies, many startups that consist of teams of 3 and 4.
Yeah, true. And how many people are you at the moment?
We are 6 people, or 7,
6 people.
Counting freelancers.
Would you like to disclose your revenue that you're making with 6 people, just as a comparison for others?
Sure. We're looking at a gross merchandise value of 500,000 euros this year.
So you see what you can achieve with only 6 people, right? I guess this is also part of today's more or less industries that we have there, on all the options with prototyping, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the art actually is that we achieved our revenue last year with the same amount of people. This year we're gonna double to get to 500,000 or more with the same amount of people, and that's the idea, to scale without having to add many people to your staff.
Yeah. Cool. Good job so far. Nice. I have a special section in this podcast, which is called Either Or. I will ask you now, or I will give you options, 5 different ones, and I just would like to have a really precise answer. We can discuss later, so choose as fast as possible from your feeling, okay? Are you ready?
Sounds great.
Number 1, money or purpose?
Purpose.
Non-alcoholic or alcoholic beverages?
Wow, non-alcoholic.
Solo founder or team?
Team.
Investor money or bootstrapping?
Bootstrapping.
Code or no code?
Code.
Okay, thank you for that. Interesting answers there. First one is, do you really prefer bootstrapping, so meaning using your own money over investor money? Can you also maybe relate to your own case?
I mean, it's a very subjective answer, because I bootstrapped with my co-founder. But I think it sets out the mindset, the mentality you have throughout the following years of your startup journey. Because if you have little money, and that's under the assumption that with bootstrapping, with your own money, you have less money than when you have investors, right? So if you have less money, you have to make better decisions. And in general, you waste less money than you would if you have more money. That's natural, right?
Yeah, it's true.
It's the same.
I can relate, yeah.
Yeah, for a private lifestyle, if you have more money at your disposal, then you do more. Compared to if you have less. So I think it's a very valuable experience to bootstrap, to use your own money, because you have to be really smart. And actually, I also think you develop more sustainable business methods, or measures, maybe part of your marketing, part of your sales, cutting costs early on because you don't have the money. Maybe you look for more startup credits you can get with some suppliers and providers you use. I don't know, but in general, running companies, running organizations as an entrepreneur is playing with resources. And
fire.
If you learn to, sorry?
Playing with fire.
Fire, yeah, in general, that's over everything, true. But everything is resources, and they are rare. So
true. I think it's similar like becoming a millionaire. If you get it all at once, you spend it probably really fast. I think we see this a lot in the news. And then if you slowly used to maybe making more money step by step, or then at one point when you're already successful getting money, you might spend it more wisely.
Same thing, yes.
You said also code before no code. So you don't think that with tools like Shopify or Wix, everybody can make it?
No, actually, I just said code because we do code. I don't know. It really depends on the product. I don't think you can give a holistic answer to that is applicable to everyone and everything. I don't know. I would always go for, if I start and I don't, it's a product that you can't solve with no code. Yes, for sure, it's no code. But even there are restrictions to that because you have to see if this will last for 5 and more years. So I don't know. No, but for sure. If there's solutions on the market that you can use, then always go for no code, because why build it yourself if someone already built it?
True, and maybe it's also a good way to start, right? So,
definitely. Yes.
Just everybody more or less can start with the tech solutions that are out there, the no-code solutions, so no coding required, to get first-hand experiences, and then later on, when it's necessary, to start coding.
Totally right. That actually goes hand in hand with your first question, bootstrapping. So if you have the money, maybe you go for code, although there's a perfect solution already out there, and you could use it. But if you bootstrap, then you would probably go for some SaaS software.
Software as a service,
instead of doing it yourself.
What do you think is the biggest mistake that startup founders do in these early stages? Is it, for example, building a prototype too fast, or not being sure about the hypothesis, or maybe turning the process around, or what is it in your opinion?
That's a tough question. What is the biggest mistake? I don't know, but I think from what I saw, it's people losing too much time while developing the first version of their product. So the MVP, the minimum viable product, or even a prototype.
What's different? Maybe we should shortly say, right? You want to just tell us the difference?
I would say a prototype is something that comes closest to the product. So it's something that you can show in order to show or visualize, so people understand what you're working on. Right? Exactly. An MVP actually already is your product. So it's the product. So it's the core of your problem solution that users could already use. So essentially, they could give you money for your product or service, and it's working. It's fine. It's maybe not pretty.
True, yeah.
It's maybe very buggy and so on, but it's working. I would say from my experience in the startup scene in the past 3 to 4 years, most founders that I met that are not in business today anymore, they failed. Although I don't like that word, we always say startups that fail. In my experience, 90% plus of the people who stopped working on the idea, they didn't fail. They just stopped working on the product. That's a different thing. It's a different thing whether you have a product and it doesn't work out on the market, compared to that you just stop working on the product in order to eventually see whether someone whether it would fly or not. And I think the common thread throughout these founders and founder teams is that it took them too long to develop a product. And again, I mean MVP or first version of the product, so where they were busy with all different kind of things, but not worth developing a first version of the product. And that leads to losing motivation, because you don't really make any development, and if you lose motivation, you stop eventually. I mean, even you lose maybe support of others, of business partners, because you have been telling them about your idea and product for so long and nothing happened. But again, I think it's evident that you need to like goals need to be achievable, otherwise participants won't partake anymore. And the same goes here. You need to have a product and take it from there. It's very rewarding actually to have a product, regardless of how good it is. And from there you take it, and people can use it, people can see it, and you have something to actually work on. And it's not an idea anymore. Yeah,
it's true. And you know what I believe is also really important? Building a prototype quite fast, yes, but also being quite sure what you want to achieve with that. And I do believe that you need to be aware of your own hypothesis that you test. So everything that you believe about your business is a hypothesis as long as you actually then test it. Yeah. And as far as I know, gorillas also started out, like we know this unicorn, we now even would have to say back then.
True, it's history.
Yeah, it's history. Bought by Getir, right? One of the early startups that did it already years ago in Turkey. This last mile delivery, or that really grocery delivery in a fast way. They opened a WhatsApp group to ask their friends and family what they would like to order, right? And then order it straight away. And this way also proving that people are interested in ordering in a really fast way without having an actual website even, right? So this is something that I believe is really important. So you need to be aware of what do you believe about your business and how do you test it, not the end result of the product, right? Taking this step by step, and I believe only this way you can become successful.
That's very true, yes. Yeah, I think that's also very hard because, again, the idea that you have, the business idea that you have is perfect. It's in your head. It's supposed to be. Human brains are designed this way, and it's good. But doing a study and basically testing and validating your hypothesis is a study. It needs to be very clear. It can only be one variable that you're testing. And it usually needs to be more or less binary. So it's yes or no.
Yes.
You cannot ask your customers or your potential customers, what do you want?
An open question.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to show them this or that.
Yeah.
I think that there was Ford who said, if I asked my customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. And the same goes for us. You can look at the next feature that you love about your app or any tool that you use, and maybe if you really like it, would you have suggested that to the makers of the product? Probably not. It's just something that came along your way, and now you like it, you use it.
True. One last question, because you said more or less it's a constant development, even a startup or any company. What was the last thing that you tested or prototyped within your existing product?
That's a very current feature that we're testing, which is showing, so on the marketplace, on e-commerce product, there's a catalog, right? So on a category page, for example, gin, there's the list of the product, it's a product list. And what we're testing is to see whether it increases our metrics to show more product details in this grid view. So normally what you see is a product picture, a title, and a price. But now we want to bring more information from the product detail page on this overview page and see whether that increases our conversion and some other metrics. So
constant development.
Yeah, always. And this is the very first basic version that we're testing. If it works out and we see improvement, then we elaborate on the idea and go for the actual visions that we have about this feature.
Thank you so much, Yascha, for all the insights connected to your own business and supporting other startups. It was a pleasure hosting you.
Anytime. Thank you so much.
Ciao, ciao.